Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at how Black Americans respond to political protests.
Yeah, and we're drawing insights from a piece called Raising Awareness, Black Americans' Responses to Political Protests.
That's the one, dated April 27th, 2025. Our main goal here is really to understand the diverse ways the Black community engages with protests.
From the historical background right up to what we see today, and importantly, the significance of those responses.
Exactly. We want to give you a clear, kind of comprehensive picture, but without getting caught up in the specific politics of the protests themselves.
Just focusing on the responses and activism.
Right. By the end, you should have hopefully a deeper grasp of this really vital aspect of social activism in America. Oh, okay. Let's get into it.
Well, the first thing that really stands out from the source is just how long this history is. Protest isn't new. It's described as almost a core part of the Black experience in the U.S.
A continuous thread of resistance.
Precisely. And you see that so clearly with the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. Figures like Dr. King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, they really set a precedent.
Yeah, their methods, nonviolence, grassroots work, those powerful speeches, they sort of created a playbook, didn't they?
They absolutely did. And that framework still influences movements now.
And the impact back then was just huge. The Civil Rights Act of '64, the Voting Rights Act of '65.
Landmark legislation.
Totally. But they didn't just happen. They were, as the source implies, a direct result of all that pressure, that visibility from the protests.
Right. But the source is also clear that those wins, while massive, didn't just magically end inequality.
No, definitely not. So the need for protests, for that kind of engagement, it just continued.
Exactly. And if you look sort of broader, the focus shifted over time, dealing with persistent things like economic gaps and what the source calls institutional discrimination.
Which means those sort of ingrained biases within systems, right?
That's the idea, yeah. And the piece mentions events like the Watts riots in '65, Stonewall in '69.
Which really highlights how race intersects with other fights for justice. It wasn't just one thing.
It broadens the picture, definitely. And that sort of leads us more towards the present, the 21st century, and Black Lives Matter.
Ah, yes, BLM. That feels like a really pivotal moment, or movement, I should say.
It does, sparked by those tragic deaths, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, George Floyd.
The scale of mobilization was just incredible. Millions of people, not just in the U.S., but globally.
It really was remarkable. And what the source highlights about BLM is its innovative mix of social media and that traditional grassroots organizing.
Yeah, that combination seems key.
And the core message, tackling systemic racism, police brutality, social inequality, it clearly struck a chord and spread incredibly fast.
Which is a perfect lead-in to talking about social media's role specifically. The source really digs into this.
It does. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they've become, really powerful tools for mobilizing people, especially with the Black community during protests.
It's more than just sending out flyers, isn't it? It's about building connections, real solidarity around shared goals.
And the speed. The source notes how information gets shared almost instantly. Real-time updates, coordinating people on the ground. That's crucial.
And the hashtags, like hashtag Black Lives Matter. That became huge.
It really did. It transcended, local boundaries, created these huge digital networks of people demanding change. Like you said, a digital rallying point.
Yeah, anyone could join in that conversation.
And then there's the visual element. Documenting things with video, photos. That creates a powerful emotional connection, doesn't it?
Definitely. It can motivate people in a way maybe just reading about something wouldn't.
Plus, the source mentions using social media for organizing resources, fundraising, coordinating actions. It sort of democratizes the whole process of activism.
Making it more accessible.
In the pursuit of equity, yeah.
Okay, so beyond the digital space, when we look at the actual forms of protest, the source points out it's not just marches, there's a whole range.
A diverse toolkit, you could say. Peaceful marches are obviously historically huge, especially in the 60s. That 1963 March on Washington, just iconic.
Such a massive display of unity and purpose.
Absolutely, showing the sheer number of people demanding change.
Then you have things like sit-ins and boycotts. They feel very direct, very confrontational in a way.
Yeah, challenging segregation, discriminatory practices by disrupting the normal flow of things, hitting them where it hurts, economically sometimes.
But with an emphasis on nonviolent resistance.
That's key. Nonviolence, but still creating pressure.
And then there's art. Artistic expression seems incredibly important.
Oh, absolutely. Music, visual arts, writing. The source mentions Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit.
Chilling. Such powerful imagery of racial violence.
Exactly. And art does more than just tell stories of struggle. It helps build resilience, it sparks conversation, it connects emotionally.
Reaching people in different ways.
In ways maybe political speeches alone can't.
So, after the protests, or sometimes alongside them, the source talks about community responses, grassroots organizations popping up.
Yes, often directly tackling the issues raised by the protests: police violence, systemic racism, economic inequality.
It's like channeling that protest energy into something sustainable, something local.
That's a good way to put it. These grassroots movements take the momentum and try to create tangible local change, collective action leading to structural shifts.
And Black Lives Matter itself, it's grown beyond just protests, hasn't it, into this global network.
Very much so. The piece talks about local chapters doing all sorts of things: campaigning for police reform, holding town halls on rights, offering legal support, creating dialogue spaces.
So it's become this sustained effort for socio-political change, much broader than just demonstrations.
Definitely. And then you have other groups mentioned, like the Movement for Black Lives, M4BL,
What's their focus according to the source?
amplifying marginalized voices, pushing for really comprehensive policy reforms. Things like divesting from police budgets and investing more in community resources, getting citizens involved in local government.
And it's not all policy-focused either, right? There are other local initiatives.
Yeah, the source points to things like community gardens, job training programs, practical efforts tackling economic inequality, and building community strength from within.
So the protests really act as a catalyst for all these different kinds of community-led actions.
Exactly, all working towards societal change through that kind of community solidarity.
Now, how does the wider world react? The source says the reactions are, well, varied.
Unsurprisingly, perhaps, but it does highlight the support from allies, from diverse communities, and it stresses how important that allyship is for social justice.
When people from different backgrounds stand together, it sends a powerful message.
Yeah, it underscores that shared responsibility for justice and human rights.
And allies can really help amplify the message, right, to the word out more broadly.
Definitely. But the source also adds a crucial point about needing genuine support, not just, performative actions.
Yeah, authenticity matters. Real collaboration, open dialogue that helps the issues resonate across society and makes the movement more inclusive.
It requires real commitment, understanding the issues deeply, not just a temporary show of support.
Of course, protesting isn't easy. The source is clear about the challenges faced. Police brutality is mentioned as a major one.
Yes, and described as being rooted in historical discrimination. It can mean excessive force, unfair arrests, tragically even loss of life.
Which must create fear, right? Potentially deterring people from participating.
It's described as having a potential chilling effect, absolutely. A legitimate fear for safety.
And then there's how the media portrays things. That's another big hurdle.
Huge. Coverage can vary wildly, sometimes showing peaceful gatherings, other times focusing only on conflict or disruption.
And that shapes how the public sees the protesters. It can stigmatize them, overshadow their actual demands for justice.
Right. Selective reporting, the source suggests, can lead to a really narrow, often negative understanding of why people are protesting in the first place.
Then you have the legal side, potential charges.
From minor stuff like disorderly conduct right up to serious felonies. And that can have lasting consequences, especially, the source notes, disproportionately affecting Black Americans.
The fear of a criminal record itself could stop someone from protesting.
It's a significant deterrent mentioned. And finally, the source even touches on internal disagreements, sometimes different ideas about tactics or strategy within movements, which can sometimes cause divisions.
So lots of challenges.
Absolutely. But despite all that, the source emphasizes the incredible resilience and determination that keeps people mobilizing for change.
Okay, let's talk impact. Does all this protesting actually achieve anything? The source argues yes. Historically, it's been crucial for policy change.
The civil rights movement, again, is the prime example. Widespread support generated by protests directly led to the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act.
Addressing fundamental discrimination, protecting voting rights, clear cause and effect.
Undeniably. And we've seen echoes more recently, especially with BLM, after instances of police violence.
Right. The source credits BLM with significantly shifting the public conversation around policing, systemic racism.
And it points to actual policy reforms in several U.S. cities since 2020. Things like bans on chokeholds, more police oversight, revised training to reduce bias.
So tangible changes. Maybe not everywhere, maybe not perfect, but evidence of sustained advocacy working.
Exactly. They indicate that pressure can lead to policy shifts.
And it's not just laws, is it? The source says protests also raise awareness about broader issues.
Yeah, things like economic disparity, healthcare inequities, access to education, they create a platform for discussion, push these issues into the mainstream conversation.
So ultimately, the collective effort really can shape policy and, maybe more slowly, societal attitudes.
That's the argument. Sustained activism is key to driving that institutional change and promoting equality.
So looking ahead, what's next? How might protests and activism evolve within the Black community? The source points to a few factors.
Yeah, generational shifts seem important. Younger activists bringing new perspectives, new methods.
Often really savvy with digital platforms.
Exactly. That energy and those skills could lead to, well, significant new initiatives, maybe change how protests are even perceived.
And technology itself keeps advancing. Social media is already huge for mobilizing, sharing info, building solidarity globally.
That rapid response capability, connecting with allies everywhere,
Yeah.
it's powerful. And the source hints that new tech might offer even more ways to document and share stories.
The way movements themselves evolve is also mentioned, this idea of intersectionality.
Right. Recognizing how different forms of oppression, race, gender, class are all interconnected.
Which could lead to broader coalitions, right? More diverse groups working together.
That's the potential, yeah. A more unified, stronger push for equity and justice by acknowledging those complexities.
And finally, just the ongoing work of raising awareness, education, advocacy.
Crucial. Empowering people with knowledge about the past and the present struggles. That helps build, a more engaged public, ready to act.
So that commitment to activism, it seems essential for any lasting change.
It really does, building that foundation of understanding and encouraging participation.
Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive today, based on that source material, we've really journeyed through the history of Black Americans' responses to political protests, looked at the diverse forms, marches, art, boycotts, seen how communities respond with initiatives.
Acknowledged the very real challenges protesters face, but also the tangible impact these movements have had on policy and awareness.
And we've considered what might shape the future: generational energy, technology, intersectionality. And just a reminder, our goal here was purely to explore the ideas in the source, not to endorse any specific political stance within it.
Mm-hmm. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, thinking about this history, the impact, the future potential. What role does our own individual awareness, our understanding, play in helping to shape a more just society? Something to mull over,